Welcome to Madlik. My name is Jeffrey Stern, and at Madlik we light a spark or shed some light on a Jewish text or tradition. We host Madlik Disruptive Torah on your favorite podcast platform, and now on YouTube and Substack. We're just a few days before Passover, and like you, I'm preparing and sharing insights. I'm excited to share a few Madlik insights on the Haggadah that I hope enhance your Seder as they will mine. In this third mini episode, we discuss something that bothers me every year, the numbers game the rabbis play. It's called Fudging the Numbers. I hope you enjoy. There's a moment in the Seder that feels like a mistake. You're telling one of the most important stories in Jewish history, liberation, identity, destiny, and suddenly the rabbis start arguing about math. Was it 10 plagues or 50 or 200 or 250? And you can feel the room shift. That is the part people rush through or skip or laugh at because it feels childish, inflated, almost unnecessary. But what if this is one of the most honest moments of the night? We call the night Seder, order. In modern Hebrew, when you ask someone how things are going, especially when they're not, you say, Hakol b'Seder? Is everything okay? Is everything in order? But for most of Jewish history, things were not in order. The Seder was not created to comfort. It was created after destruction, in exile, in uncertainty. And its purpose was not just to remember the past, but to create a feeling of Seder in a world that clearly wasn't. Before anything begins, we recite and often sing the structure of the night. Kadesh urchatz, karpa hasyachatz. A table of contents set to melody. Because when life lacks structure, you don't just create order, you perform it, you rehearse it, you sing it into existence. You say the same instinct in halacha. The Torah says on the first day, remove leaven from your homes. Sounds simple until you try to do it. When exactly? At what hour? Before eating? After? Do we remove the leaven at the same time as unwrap the matzah? Sounds messy. The rabbis step in and do what they do best. They create order. They define, they separate, they quantify. They separate the two processes moving up the removal of the leaven by a day. And then the Mishnah says, you may eat until the 4th hour and burn at the beginning of the 6th hour. Everything neatly falls into place. Not messy. Eat until here, stop there, burn at another time. Precision, boundaries, order. Because when the world is chaotic, clarity comes a form of control. So when the rabbis reach the plagues, you might expect restraint. Instead, you get multiplication. 10 becomes 50, 50 becomes 200, 200 becomes 250. But here's the thing. The ancient world loved big numbers, not as statistics, but as storytelling. Herodotus describes Persian armies in the millions. Modern historians, they estimate a fraction of that. The book of Judges describes armies like locusts in number. Chronicles speaks of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. These aren't spreadsheets, they're signals. They're saying this mattered. So the rabbis aren't confused, they're composing. They're taking a story that could have been a family story about Jacob and his 12 sons, a migration, a quiet survival, and turning it into something bigger, a national origin story. The origin stories don't whisper. They expand, they amplify, they insist. Because the people telling this story were not living in a world that confirmed it. They were living in a world that contradicted it. Empires rose and fell. Jews were scattered, displaced, diminished. Nothing about their reality suggested permanence. So they did something remarkable. They told the story anyway, and they told it big. The Seder is not just about remembering what happened. It's about asserting that the story still holds. It takes a world that is not the Seder, and for one night makes it feel like it is. With structure, with ritual, with numbers that stretch beyond reason. So yes, the numbers grow. 10 becomes 50, 50 becomes 200, 200 becomes 250. It sounds like an exaggeration, and maybe it is, but not where you think, because the real exaggeration is not the number of plagues. The real exaggeration is the survival and impact of the Jewish people. A tiny people, a fragile story, told against all evidence, still here, still told, still shaping the world. That's a Madlik thought for your Seder, wishing you a Chag Kosher v'Sameach and a night that feels, even for a moment, the Seder.